I know it's difficult, but the best thing to do is just believe in yourself. And you're on your journey of just being an entrepreneur. I know we both could vouch on this. There's going to be days when you wake up and you're going to be questioning if this is what you're supposed to be doing, but that's normal. And just continue to move forward through that, because those questions are going to turn to answers, and you're going to start facing the reality that you're dreaming of.
Hi, and welcome to the Life and Times podcast. We are on a mission to help those who are on their personal journeys of growth to feel empowered and expand their minds. We do this by sharing content that informs and inspires action through transformational interviews, storytelling, and real life lessons that you can apply today. Let's get into the episode. Today, we have a very special guest in the house. I'm excited to get into this conversation, to learn about all the great things that are going on here, mixing tech and textiles and all that good stuff. So we have Mr. Oye. I'm going to let him introduce himself, and he's going to tell us a little bit about... Oye, tell us who you are, what you do, and yeah, just introduce yourself to the people.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the intro. So, I like to do this as an introduction. My full name is Oye Ajewole, but I shorten it to Oye. You know, it's short and sweet. But I'm a mechanical engineer and designer and fashion enthusiast. I believe I could name myself that. But yeah, I am from Nigeria, born and raised there, came here, and created a life after my family and my parents really started building, uh, building a structure for us out here. So I'm excited to be on this podcast and talk to you.
Ooh, that's really cool. So first off, let's just break this down. So you said mechanical engineer. So break
Yes,
that down into
mechanical.
layman's terms. What does that really mean? What does that mean?
It means mechanical engineer. That's a great question. I guess it means like you really know how things work. A lot of people traditionally think mechanical engineering is mainly for cars and like auto shops, but mechanical engineering is a vast range of things. Like we're the engineers that learn all the different types of engineering,
Okay.
and we try to put that together. So basically, electrical, civil, yeah, anything you could think of, and we try to make something out of it.
Cool. So how did you get into that? Are your parents are they into like the engineering space, or how did you get into engineering?
No, so my dad is actually a teacher. He actually teaches math and science, and my mom's a nurse, and they're Nigerian. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but there is the saying of, is it the trifecta? You could either be a lawyer,
Doctor.
a doctor, or
Yeah,
engineer.
yeah.
So
You had no choice.
it was one of those two. I'm one of those two. So I was like, I picked engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So what age did you come here?
I came here around 2, so I was pretty young. Yeah, so my dad came over here to study at BU. Then he brought the family over once he was like, this is a good opportunity for us.
And so I know you have your business going on, .yu, and it sounds really cool. I want to hear so much more about it. Like I was looking over your website and everything, and I know how you said you're mixing tech and textiles. What does that even look
Mhm.
like? How do you do that?
Yeah, so it's super futuristic, right? And think of, a good reference point is, I'm not sure if you've seen Back to the Future. Have you?
I don't think so. I probably have seen like snippets of it, but I don't know enough to remember.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. So there is a point in that movie where Marty McFly he has a jacket on and he's getting the jacket gets wet and he's like, oh shoot, my fit is wet. That for anybody that's gonna ruin your
Yeah,
whole day,
yeah.
right? So but in that moment, the jacket has a auto drying mechanism where it dries itself right there on fly. Then it also fits perfectly to his body. And this is like, that's very futuristic, but it's possible nowadays, especially with technology and advancements of just like the everyday
Yeah.
people. And this is where I'm like really trying to go towards with that,
Cool.
with what I'm doing.
Cool. That sounds really good. And also, I was, doing a little Googling, looking you up and all this stuff. So I saw something about like you're using, or you did something with like 3D printing and creating clothing or some sort of clothing, right? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, 3D
Okay.
knitting.
So
Yep.
talk a little bit about that. Like, what is that? Like, because I hear, you hear a lot about like, 3D printing, but how does this like, how does it really come together, and how does it, how does it work? What is
Yeah.
it really? How is it different from, just the way that our clothes are made today?
Oh yeah, for sure. So the beautiful, how do I want to word this? The beautiful benefits of 3D knitting and 3D printing when it comes to clothing is a few things. Like one of the huge benefits is the fact that we're using less material. So with traditional clothing, you have a roll of fabric,
Yeah.
right? And you're cutting the fabric to the sizes that you want. But then what happens to the fabric that you can't use? That it becomes waste unless you're upcycling or you repurposing
Yeah.
it. And a lot of people are doing that at the moment. But then there's the other side of it where instead of cutting fabric from, like, you have a big square and you cut a fabric from it, what if you could make use the exact amount of fabric that you need for any type of garment, any type of clothing, anything that you want. And that saves a lot in terms of just material, saves a lot of waste. And that's one of the big benefits
Yeah.
of it. But the real interesting part of it is that you're able to fully customize anything that you
Yeah.
do. Like, so I was using a 3D knitting machine, and one of the cool things that we could do in with the company I was working with was, say you wanted a sweater, right? Like today, Boston weather is kind of iffy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, be nice and like around noon, but then towards the end of the day, it gets a
You
little
get you
chippy
get three
and
seasons in
cold.
one day. Yeah.
Exactly. Boston can't make up its mind. So imagine you're on Newberry or any type of street, right? And you're like, I need a sweater. You go into a store and you say, hey, could you make me a sweater? They get your measurements and you walk out that store. But then you come back in that store 3 hours later and there's a fully knitted sweater ready for you to wear. So it's one of those things where it's really like customizable, and not only customizable, you could make it on the
Yeah.
fly in a sense. But it's really dope, and that's like where a lot of technology is moving
Yeah.
towards in terms of like fashion and
That's
clothing.
really cool. That's really cool. I like it. I don't know. My career has been in the food industry and culinary education and
Mm.
restaurants, trucks, all of those things. So this is all very new to me. Aside from the fact my father is a tailor. He's a master tailor, so he's been doing this forever. So I understand like a lot of the waste and things that goes into it. So it does seem like just a much more um, economical and just like
Yep.
just I guess just a better process. It just seems like a better process. Yeah.
So you're familiar with it
A
a
little
little
bit,
bit,
a little
though.
bit. I've heard a little bit about, I about 3D printing. I've seen some of the things that have been happening. I've saw something in like the science museum also, all of that stuff. But that's really as far as my experience goes. I've never seen any machines up close or nothing like that. But it's really cool, and it's
Yeah.
cool to know that with the climate that's going on in our world, that there's something being done about to cut down on the waste, in that way as well. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
But
That's amazing.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Now go ahead. I was gonna say, but that's where it starts,
Yeah.
right? You go to a science museum, you see something that like blows your mind or that you can't even wrap your mind around, and you're like, I want to explore more into that. And that's kind of how I like got into it as well.
Yeah.
So science museum, shout out to the
Shout
science
out to the
museums
science
for putting us
museum,
on.
good old science museum, expanding minds every day.
For sure.
So how long have
Mhm.
you been working in the industry now?
It's been around 3 to 4
Yeah.
years, I would say.
So
So
tell
yeah,
us about your experience, because you're a black man in tech in Boston. You know, Boston is not known to be the blackest city in the world. I mean, from from a person that grew up in inner city Boston, it seems pretty black. But from a lot of people on the outside, they feel like, Boston is just, the least black city in the world. But definitely in the tech space, I would say that we are lacking a lot of representation, even though it's one of the industries that really fuels our city. But can you talk a little bit about your experience, being a black man in tech in Boston?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, Boston is not known for. We have black people in Boston, but it's not known for the industries. Like, black people are not known to be in the industries that make Boston Boston. So, in my experience, like even in college, I was often the only black person in the class, or often the only black person in the lab, and even till this day, it's somewhat like that. But there are definitely more people bridging that gap and breaking down those doors. But it is one of those things where it was difficult to understand, right? You walk into these rooms and you're the only person that looks like you, and you're looking to some sort of essence of relating with somebody, and you don't really have that connection with anybody because culturally you may be coming from a different place, but you had to operate in these spaces, and it's like it gets to a point where you go through imposter syndrome a lot, right? Well, for me, I could talk about myself. Imposter syndrome was a big thing for me in this space, and I mean, even till this day, at the moment, there's some moments where it's like, shoot, am I supposed to be in this space? But you work your way through that and you go through it. But yeah, it's been one of those things where it was a little difficult at first, but as I started becoming more ingrained into this industry, I started just like putting that aside and try to work my way through it.
And do you think it's important, or does it really matter? Like, just in the grand scheme of things, do you think it's important for us to have the representation in that space, and why or why not?
Yeah, I think it's very important, right? The reason why, so I have a good friend, Nisha, right? And she told us a story. Actually, check out her company, Badika, if you get a chance. But she told a story, right, where she talks about everybody. We go to the bathroom and we see either the touchless sink or like the touchless drying system, right? And she was telling us the story about one time she went to the bathroom and she went to wash her hands, and she was trying to get the sink to work, but it couldn't work. She saw a lady next to her go to the sink. It worked perfectly well. And she's like, maybe the sink is not working. She went to the sink that the lady just used, and it wasn't working. And she was like, I wonder why it's not working. And one of the things that she did, I'm not sure if you ever did this, but I guess if you press like firmly on your palm, you kind of move your palm becomes a little pale. And she did that, and it started working. And that's just a story of like a lot of these tech companies are creating these devices, and they don't really have a full range of skin tones to work on these devices. So it works with fair skin, but when you get the darker skin, sometimes it doesn't even recognize us. And that's one of the things where you really want to tap in on that, because maybe they're doing it on purpose, maybe they're not doing it on purpose. But it's just the fact that there may be not enough representation in these rooms that are creating technology to really think about that. And that's one of the important reasons why it's like we want to see more black and brown people in the spaces of tech.
That's crazy, because something as simple as just that, like what the sensors can pick up and all of that stuff, and just because nobody's sitting at the table and like, hey, we don't have a dark enough skin at the table to say, hey, let's try it out on mine, and let's see if my hand works in there, like, that's really, that's crazy. Exactly. So I wouldn't even, I didn't even think of that, but like, that is something where it's like, making sure that the products that are being brought to the market have us in mind is that's wow, I didn't even think about that, because I think from my perspective, like I just look at it as like this is a booming industry. It's an industry where you can make a whole lot of money, and it's right here in our city. Like we should tap into
Hmm.
it. You know, we should be
Hmm.
more tapped into it. But that's crazy. I didn't even think of it from that side. So do you think
Yeah,
like do you feel like there's any barriers that are stopping people from getting into it, or why do you think that there's not more people?
I mean, there's so many things, right? The lack of resources. That's number one, right? The lack of knowledge as well, and it's not it's like the lack of resources and lack of knowledge. And I think those two things combined really create that barrier. And also, you don't see a lot of if you don't see a lot of your own self in a place. Why would you go towards that place unless you like really are interested and you're exposed to it in a different way? And I think that's why the barrier was created. But I feel like a lot of times, currently, there's a good effort in pushing
Yeah.
that, and and removing that barrier at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've been seeing a lot of stuff like, within, different state officials or, people who are in office in the city posting different things about it. And a lot of programs also. There are a lot of tech programs that I know of that are really focusing on youth in the inner city, which I think
Hmm.
is really cool.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's really cool too. It's like, you have to start. I think it's beneficial to really embrace everybody in this, but I think it really makes a difference when you start from youth, right?
Definitely.
Expose somebody early as possible. Like I think there's a few programs that are doing like elementary school
Yeah.
now, and like look into this. Look, this might be your interest, and it's like really making it culturally, um, how you say it? Culturally
Yeah.
relevant to us as well. Where, because a lot of times, like this technology's been around for so long, but it didn't really resonate with who we are as people. So it's like sometimes we like see the benefit of it, but there's so much benefit. It's like even on the individual level, you're like how many artists do you know, right? And if you get these artists some of the equipment, some of the resources, they probably make something that will blow your mind, and that's one of the things that's really dope. Then also on like a neighborhood level, where a lot of the technology that we're using could benefit the neighborhoods that we live in as well. So it's one of those beautiful things where it's just like if you give a group of people who just like who are super creative and who really want to change things up, you'll see them change things up real
Yeah,
quick.
definitely. And I think that's something that I always push, like exposure and access. Like, just being exposed to just the idea of, oh, I didn't even think I could tech
Hmm.
wasn't a part of it, wasn't even in my mind. I wasn't thinking of engineering, but I see Oye here doing it. So, he looks like me. He resonates. I could relate to him. So now it becomes something where it's like, okay, that could be a possibility. And then, like you said, the access to those tools. To be able to create and to be able to test it out and to explore and see, just gravitate towards something. I think that's super important. So did you have were
Yeah,
you
for sure.
exposed at a young age to engineering or any of the things that you're doing now? And if you did, where did you get that exposure?
Yeah, so my dad, math and science guy, and super about, or both my parents are super about education. So they're always just like, you're learning. No matter what you do, you're gonna learn. And I grew up during the boom of the internet. So it, I got exposed to a lot of different things through the internet. Just like really looking into like different technology, different cars, everything like that. And I always knew I wanted to do something in tech, but where I really started finding my position and my way was when I was starting a few years after I graduated, right? I was doing startups. I was working in different startups trying to find my way. and I met this gentleman who pretty much exposed me to this. It was like, you should look into 3D printing, and this was around like 2014, 2015. I never heard of it. I never even knew what that was, but I was like, you know what? Let me look into it. And from that point on, when I started looking into it, I started really deep diving into it and was like, oh, I could use this for this. Oh, this is interesting. These people are doing this. And that's where I really was like, I think I found my niche and started pushing towards that. And that's where I really started building some wings and legs in terms of just like what I do now.
Yeah. So let's just get into a little bit more about what you're doing now, why you're doing it, and also where do you want to, like, where are you going in this space?
Yeah, all that. So what I'm doing now is, like, recently I just decided to really take on .yu as the idea in full-fledged form. And what it is the combination of me combining my education as a mechanical engineer and my passion for textiles, for fashion, and really creating something out of them. The reason behind it comes from me just wanting to see something different, honestly, and believing that we can make, like, clothing hasn't really changed in a while, right? Like, clothing is beautiful. We have new designers who make amazing clothing, but the fundamentals of clothing really haven't changed in a while. When we started, like, years back, when clothing started, it was created as a protective system for us, like protect us from the elements. And that is still what we do today. But what if we continue to elevate that idea, right? And not only let it protect us, but what if we allowed it to, or what if it gave us the capability to do much more? And, like, especially as everyday people, like, what if we are able to do much more because of the clothing that
Like
we wear?
what?
And man, what could you think
I don't
of?
know.
Like, what could you think?
You gotta let me fly. I could start
I
flying to
mean,
the
yo,
grocery store. Got a jetpack in my shoes.
I'm not sure about flying, but you can start hopping a little further. You know what I mean? Like, so our idea is like we talked about earlier with Boston leather. It's 3 seasons in one. But what if you have a piece of garment that allows you to be comfortable in those 3 seasons, where you don't have to think about it? Like, so like a heated garment that does something like that, or a piece of clothing that allows you to really know your surroundings or your body, or like your body in a different way. Like they have pieces of techwear that does that, like smart watches or anything, something like that. But what if you have clothing that can really take it to the next level and really protect you? So
Yeah, that's interesting. So you want to do that that's the vision for .yu, or is this? Yeah.
yes,
So what does that
yeah.
name come from? Does it mean something?
Yeah, .yu means a bunch, but the origin story is so the .com, right? The When internet started booming and people were www was online really looking into things, the .com became a tool. It became a tool to connect us to everything around us, right? And now we're able to look at inspiration from Germany, connect to people in Africa, and you're in America doing all this. So one of the things on my journey, I was always looking into finding myself, and that was part of the things that I was really interested in. And I was like, the .com became a tool that allowed us to connect with everything around us. But what if we created a tool that allowed us to connect with ourselves? So .yu became that tool, and .yu is the idea of really being connected with yourself in every way, shape, or form, physically, spiritually, mentally, all of that.
I love that. I love that. I love that.
Thank,
Yeah, no, that's really dope. I'm excited to see where
thank
you
you.
go with this. I want you to I'm excited to see what kind of clothing you come up with. I don't know how temperature control. I don't know if I'm have a little AC, if it got a little fan in it. Like, how does this work? Like, I just
Yeah,
don't. It's beyond me,
yeah.
but I don't know. Maybe you need to host a class. Um,
I don't know, engineering 101 or less than 101, whatever's below that.
Let me know. I could get you dripped out and educate you at the same
Yeah.
time. Like, yeah,
That's really dope.
for
So I
sure.
want to talk a little bit about, you being from Nigeria and how
Mhm.
that has, like, how that just plays into your life, who you are, like, how does it, because I just think it's very interesting, seeing how does it, I don't know, just how does it work on your mindset? Because I just think, like, there's African Americans and there's Africans. They're not,
Yeah.
we're the same, but we're not the same. And how does that, like, just how do you navigate those two worlds? Because you're kind of right in the middle of both. Like, you're growing up American, but you're African. So how did, like, just
Hmm.
just tell us a little bit about that, how your culture and how you grew up plays into what you're doing now, your ambitions, anything. I don't know, just talk to us a little bit about Africa. Take us to the motherland real quick.
Yeah, man. So let me see. I mean, where to start? So Africans and Nigerians are just like we're definitely on a level of like just really pushing the boundaries, right? Like everything that we do is to push the boundaries, and in some shape or form, I even feel like I'm doing that with what I'm doing right now. But growing up African or Nigerian specifically in America was an interesting upbringing. Like you said, like there's that stigma of the difference between the African Americans and the Africans from Africa, right? And it was something that was you didn't even have to say it in a sense, but it was kind of put on it was put in the air, right? But in terms of my upbringing, my parents was always trying to push education, and not only education was always pushing to do the best you can do because you have an accent or because you're not from here, really push towards that. And that's the energy that was really given to us, especially me and my brothers. Like growing up, it was just like do the best you can, and that's something that I really took on. And for a while, I had to figure out how to really manifest that because, like you said, I also grew up with African American friends, and I grew up in the African American way as well. Because no matter how much my parents was like, "You're like we're trying to keep you in that culture bubble of Africa," there's like you're gonna be looking at hip hop and you're like, "Nah, I want to be part of this. I want to partake in that." So it was really finding the identity, like and really figuring out like who I am as a person. And it's been an interesting journey, but I feel like I'm in a good place now where it's like, yeah, I grew up African, I grew up Nigerian, also grew up African American, but at the end of the day, I do circle back and being I'm Nigerian, and that's where I was born, and that's where I really feel connected to. And I feel connected to everything, but it's one of those things where it's just like, when you're searching for who your people
Yeah.
are, and now I know who my people are. So it's like I always knew it, but now you connect with it.
Yeah. So do you have you gone back? Do you go back often?
Man, I haven't gone back in so long. Last time I went back was damn, like in 2007 or something. But I want to go
Yeah.
back. Yeah, I want to go
Do you
back.
think?
When I was there,
I'm sorry. Go
it
ahead.
was beautiful.
Yeah.
Now go ahead. I was
No. Do
saying,
you think that you would do something over there? Like, do you think you would want to do something? Bring the tech and bring with something with .yu, or just do anything over there in terms of like business.
yeah, yeah, I would love to, man. I would love to. That's the goal. Like, really bring back what we learn over here to there, or just like even learn from what's over there and bring it back here. So
Do,
create that
do you
connection.
think you're gonna infuse, or do you have plans to infuse like African culture into what you're doing with .yu here? Into like the
I
types of
can't tell
clothes.
you everything.
All right, all right.
Nah, I definitely want to use like part of my culture in what I'm
Yeah,
doing. Like I don't want to shy away from
yeah,
that. That's like really what I want to do.
yeah. That would be really dope. That would be really dope. I love it.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, we could create. I want to like imagine. This is gonna sound cheesy, but Black Panther. Like Black Panther was really like Afro tech. It was really pushing that
Yeah.
barrier. Like,
Yeah,
mm,
definitely, definitely. Well, Well, I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it. I always want to be. I always felt like I should have been in that movie. So.
I can see it. I can see it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, that's really dope. So for like some young people, or anybody that would try, is interested in getting into this space, do you have to, like, in order to be in the tech and engineering spaces, do you have to go to school for it? Are there other different ways that you can get involved into it? Or how would someone even just start exploring this?
YouTube University is your
Yeah.
best friend,
Yeah.
right? So even though I went to school for mechanical engineering, I'm gonna be frank with you. I'm gonna be 100%. I did not learn what I'm doing now only through Northeastern. So I went to Northeastern for undergraduate. But when I was in school there, I was so consumed with other things that I didn't really fully embrace like being an engineer, right? If that makes any sense. It was until I found like this is the position I want to be and this is the goal, like this is where I want to go. That's where I really started tapping into like how do I learn the skills? And I went through different programs. Like there's so many what do you call it? Fab labs or digital fabrication labs being built around the city now. And one of the things that you could do is just walk in and be like, hey, I want to learn how to use the machines. And there's like the South End Center of Technology is a great place to do that. I think Madison Park now has a digital fab
Really?
lab. And,
I'm
yeah, I
a
think so.
Madison alum. I love Madison.
Oh,
Yeah.
for real?
Yeah, I studied baking and pastry there.
Oh
Yeah.
shoot, I'm your neighbor then. I went to
Really?
O'Brien.
What year did you graduate?
Yeah.
Me
08.
too.
Bro?
Yeah, that's so funny.
Oh shoot, look at that.
That's funny.
Yeah. Like that's a connection right there, red and blue.
We were walking through the same building at the same time on different sides. That's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Nah, that's crazy. Wow. Yeah, so I think Madison has a digital fabrication now, a lab too, or they're at least building one. Like a lot of schools are looking into it. And I know like if you're older, you probably don't want to go into school, but there's definitely centers that are being built that do have like the technology, and they're looking for people, right? And you could just go there and say, hey, I want to learn, and they'll teach you. But also like just programs. There's a lot of programs out there. One of the programs I really used and that helped me was Fab Academy. Is a program that is based out of so the headquarters is in Boston, but they do it's like a decentralized educational program, and they go do it they do it throughout the world. But I really learned a lot of the skills through there, especially when the digital side. I just learned a lot of skills through that.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's really dope. I know there's so many people that, I'm glad you listed off some of these programs too, because, there's people need access. And sometimes I realize, like, I feel like in Boston we have a lot of programs that can help a lot of people, but a lot of people just don't know about them. But I encourage anybody that is looking to get into anything, whether it's tech, cooking, whatever you or your young person, your child, your nephew, your niece, your kid in your neighborhood is looking for, just do a search. Boston probably got a program for it. And you can
Got a program.
really get them connected, get them, some exposure to what is going on. So don't feel like we don't have a lot of resources here in Boston. We have plenty. So we just have to tap into them and really take advantage of them to, push ourselves forward. So let's do that.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Sure. I agree with you 100%. Like one of the greatest positions, like contract positions I got, was literally just me emailing somebody and say, hey, like I'm interested, and then like come to the office, and I got a position off of that. So it's like really just tapped in. It's keep shooting. Somebody's gonna say yes eventually.
Yeah, shoot your shot. The worst that somebody could say is no. The worst they could say
Yeah.
is no, and then it's okay. You just move on to the next. And keep trying.
Like that first no stings a little, but you got used to it.
It does. It stings, but then you got to go from making it sting to just laughing it off and making it your fuel to just keep going. Just keep
Exactly.
going.
Exactly. hmm
So I can't believe you went to OB. That's so funny. That's so funny to me.
Yeah. That's so crazy, Madison. I mean, Boston's a small world. Eventually, you're gonna like we're gonna run
Yeah.
into
Did you
somebody
play
that
any
go.
sports at Madison?
Nah, I didn't. I didn't play nothing like on the
Yeah.
team. I obviously just yeah, like
Okay, cause
street ball and stuff like that, but nothing on the
yeah, I
team.
was a cheerleader, so I remember we used to always cheer for all the football games and go crazy. And then I remember y'all's football team had a rivalry with our football team, and then they took like
Of
dead
course.
birds, put them in the locker room, and then Madison got a dead cat put in y'all's locker
I
room.
mean, it got a little spicy
It got spicy.
eventually.
It got real spicy.
Yeah, for sure. I do remember some of that, but I'm not sure how much we could speak on
I
about
know, seriously,
that.
yeah, it was bad. I hope y'all got it together. Y'all being friendly now. Got all that. I was just over there actually the other day, and just like
Hmm.
walking around there. And they have so much artwork and all that cool stuff over there. It looks really nice.
For real, I haven't been there so
Yeah,
long.
yeah, it looks really nice. Um, but yeah, so if what is some like words of wisdom, words of encouragement like that you can give to somebody? Because have you had to overcome? Are there any obstacles that you had to overcome to face? I mean, that you had to confront in order to get to where you're at now. Like, and what was that like to go through that? And how did you get through it?
I mean, yeah, I mean, as an entrepreneur, you're gonna go through obstacles every morning, right? You're gonna wake up and there's a new obstacle that you have to go through for sure. But I think a lot of the obstacles that I had to go through were like even me just figuring out like direction and where I want to go. And when I do get to those places, it's like also don't like talking yourself off the ledge a lot of times, right? Because for me, as I was mentioning earlier, like the imposter syndrome was real, right? You walk into these places, like you're having a difficult time to connecting with some people, and you're trying to figure out how to do it the best way, and try to do it in a way where it feels organic to you, and you're not losing yourself, but also you're not closing yourself off to people that could help you and benefit you and be beneficial to your journey. And it was really going through that process and finding like like-minded people, finding mentors, and really understanding who you are as a person. So for me, I went through the process of like even right now, I currently have a few mentors, and that's been one of the most beneficial things I've
Most definitely.
had in a while, right? Like the time like you can have your friends and your friends are great. Then there's a level that they could help you on. And sometimes you need somebody who's been there, done it. And you could be like, hey, I'm looking to expand this way. How could I do it? Or I'm walking into this to this wall. How could I break down this wall? And the people who are successful at it are able to give you that game and just be like, yo, this is how you do it. This is X, Y, and Z. Look into this. Talk to this person.
Definitely.
And yeah, and on top of that, one of the biggest things that I learned over the years is like you can't do it by yourself, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can only go as far, man. And the team, it's a team thing. Like find the right people, find like-minded people, and surround yourself around like with that. And that's something I'm currently even doing myself right now. It's like, yeah, so I think those some of the gems I could drop, but I'm still learning. So it's like I don't have all the game, and like, but I'm sharing what I know.
Yeah,
So
definitely. And I think, mentorship is super important. Like tapping into other people's knowledge, people who have, not all your mentors have to be older than you. You can have mentors that are younger than you and but just, more experienced in certain areas, but just tapping into other people's knowledge and not feeling like, whatever that you're doing, you have to be on an island doing it by yourself. And this is something that I'm also, struggling with trying to overcome because, a lot of times me personally, just feeling like if I guess just the way I grew up, like if I'm gonna do something, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. But realizing that you can only go so far by yourself, just like you said. You can only You can only do so much. You can only stretch yourself so thin. But tap into other people. And always be open to listening to what other people have to say. Like, not feeling like you know everything and you can't. Then you close yourself off to different experiences, different ideas,
Yeah.
different whatever it is. Like, always being open to hearing, to listening, and getting in the right environment, like you said. And that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, because I know that environment is super important. And depending on where you grow up and how you grow up, having an environment that is conducive to your growth and to, you getting better in any area that you're trying to get better in is not always it's not always easy, but that's why I encourage people, like, even if you don't have that environment, you can't create that environment in your immediate area. Tap into things online, tap into online communities, tap into different podcasts, different shows, whatever. Like, tap into different communities that will encourage you in the way that you're trying to go, because that's super important. Yeah,
Yeah, for
definitely.
sure. Damn, that was beautifully
Oh,
said.
thank you.
You know, no, that was amazing. And like you said, it's like really find that community and that environment. And I think you gave good advice of, like, even if it's not immediately in what do you call it, your like your surroundings, online. We were talking about it earlier, like online, the .com, like, really created that space where you could go, hey, I wanna learn how to crochet, something random, right? They look at a bunch of people out there
Yeah,
crocheting, like, or yeah, and they're like, look into this, look into that. Like, you could find anything online, for real, for real.
most definitely. And something else too that you
Yeah.
said when you were talking about the .yu story, you was talking about how you were on this journey of trying to find yourself,
Mhm.
all those ways that you listed spiritually and everything. So tell us a little bit about that journey and how you got to a place where you felt more, um, like you mentioned, like, your people now and all of that stuff. Like, how did you get to that place, and what did that journey look like for you getting to know you?
Jeez, I mean, that's definitely a long story. So, but it started. It was a rough journey. I'm not gonna even lie, right? Because I did like young when I was younger. I did a few things in terms of, like, just like making decisions for, like, my career, my future, based on what I thought other people wanted to see. And I felt after a while I was living a life that was based off of what I think people wanted and not what I actually. And it really, I had to really sit down with myself and be like, yo, why do I feel like I am moving in a positive direction, but it's not bringing me that joy that that people tell you is supposed to
Yeah,
bring,
yeah.
right? And I remember like my first job after college, I got fired from, and when I was fired, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like,
What was that
I
job?
was like, yo, it was. You ever heard of HVAC?
Yeah.
H, yeah. So you're familiar how exciting it is, right?
So
HVAC
just
is
HVAC, like heating, cooling, all that stuff, right? Yeah. Uh-huh.
heating,
Yeah.
ventilation, air
Okay.
conditioning. It's not exciting, right? It's not.
Yeah.
It's not exciting at all. It's like, but it's a well-paying job. But I was in that position and I was working, and after a month, you kind of see everything, right? It's like it's a well-paying job. It's like it's a good job if you ever get it. But for me, I was one of those people. I was like, nah. I went into engineering thinking I'll be creating rocket ships
Yeah.
and things
Yeah.
like that, right? So when I was doing it, I quickly lost like an enthusiasm about it. I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing here, and that led me to perform bad. Then that led me to just like being fired. And I remember the day I was fired. Like, it was it was a feeling of like relief in a sense, but also you're scared. You're trying to figure out what to do next. And but after getting fired from that position, I was like, let me look into let me actually chase what I want to chase, right? And I started working at different startups. Like I worked at a wide range. I worked at a startup that this lady was trying to create a new towel that was the best towel in the world. And I was like, I don't know if I believe this, but let me try to do it. And I worked from like at that startup. I worked at a startup that really it was a medical device startup that really pushed the boundaries and was trying to create you know a cheaper alternative than traditional IVF. And if you're not familiar with IVF, IVF stands for in vitro
Oh,
fertilization. So yeah, if you're a couple that can't have a kid or can't conceive in a traditional way, you go through IVF. And normally IVF is it could easily cost you up to like upwards of like 500K
yeah,
or
I've
something
heard
like
it's
that.
crazy.
Yeah, and I don't think insurances cover it because it's a life decision that you're making and it's not mandatory. So a lot of people have to pay that out of pocket. And this company that I worked with made an alternative that reduced the price to up like to close to like 50K instead of 500. And it was a beautiful experience. Like it's like, oh, you actually can make clothing. I mean, not clothing. You actually make technology that actually
Yeah, yeah,
benefits people.
yeah.
Yeah, and like through that, I was learning about the struggles of couples just having like making that decision. Like, are we financially able to have a kid because we can't do it
That's
naturally?
crazy.
Versus like, yeah, you know what I mean. So it was one of those things where it was like, oh, like you actually could use your engineering for good, and like in a way where it's like it's more of a supporting rather than anything else. And so I like for three to 4 years I was working at startups from startups to startups to startups and just like learning and developing my skills. And through that journey I was really figuring out what I wanted to do and like finding myself in a sense, right? Like I knew that I didn't believe in the best towel in the world, but I knew that like actually creating a device that could help somebody like achieve like let's just help somebody and achieve a couple achieve like one of their goals is one of those things that I was like, oh, that's dope. That feeling is great. So it was like pushing towards that rather than pushing towards like something that may be a little more superficial.
Most definitely. So where did you land? What did you what did you find out about yourself? What's your passion? What fuels you? What'd you find out?
Man, I found out that that's a great question. Um, what did I find out about myself? I found out that no, what I just said was like one of those things where it was like I want to do something that's more than just like I'm doing it for myself. Like I want to do stuff for myself, but also want to have a message to
Yeah,
it,
something
right?
that impacts more
Like
people.
that's why exactly, you know, like a message, like and that's where like with the new stuff I'm about to release, it has a message to it. It's not just like clothing, but I mean obviously it's clothing, but it's like I'm hoping that people feel the message behind it. And that's one of those things that I really like look towards to like really doing that. That also I'm a person that cannot sit in one place too much for too
Yeah.
long. So yeah, you know, I'm like, I need to work on a new project, or I'm gonna get bored, or I need to, change it up a little bit. So that's one of the things I found out about myself
Yeah.
too. It's like,
Yeah, we definitely
yeah,
we definitely have that in common. That's something for me too. Like I can't sit still for too long. Like even so before this whole podcasting thing, for years I was running a food truck in restaurants, catering company, all that good stuff. So I did it for 6 years, but my only thing was I said, you know what? Every year I gotta fire myself and do something different. That's the only way I'm gonna make this keep working, or else I'm gonna get real bored. So that was one of the
yeah,
things that really helped us to continue to grow and do all of that stuff because I was like, I gotta do something new each year. I can't keep on doing the same thing every year.
So how far did you grow in the food industry?
Yeah,
'Cause
so
that sounds amazing.
So I started it. It was my friend at the time. We started he started the company and asked me to come and help him. So I got into it was a startup. So I got into it as a startup, and then we took it from just being a small private chef and catering company, and now there's like 2.5 food trucks, 2 restaurants, and there's another one that's coming, but I don't have nothing to do with the last one. So I got out of that in 2021-ish. So yeah, but it's growing and it's doing its thing. So it's happy to see it. So now I'm like, I just look at it as like, oh, my baby went off to college and I'm watching it from afar. But it's really.
You just watching it too.
Huh?
Yeah. I say you're watching it from afar do great things.
Yeah, so it's really dope. It's really dope to see it. So even though I don't have my hands in it anymore, it's like, just knowing that, the foundation that I created there and just watching it soar and, I look at it, I see me all over it. So it's really cool.
Yeah. You left your sauce there a little bit. You put your sauce, you put your little sauce on there. Now you're bringing it to the podcast game though.
Exactly. So one of my superpowers is building a vibe. Oh my gosh, hold on. These are the good things about living in a family house. So I have a 3-family house, and it's me, my sister, and my dad. So we all here. So it is. And my father also was the one who. My father is an immigrant as well, so he came from Haiti, and he just kind of is showing my family how to create generational wealth. So he bought this house when I was like 5 years old, and then I bought it from him, and my daughter was born into the house that I own, and now it's gonna be hers. So it's exciting. It's definitely exciting. Yeah.
Man, that's beautiful. That's what you want to hear. That's the stories that you are looking for, and it's like that's dope. Wow.
Yeah, most definitely. And if it wasn't for him, I don't know if I'd have been able to afford it. Well, I definitely wouldn't have been able to afford a 3-family in Boston. So thank you, Daddy.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to your dad. That's dope.
Definitely.
I mean, go ahead. Yeah.
What'd you say?
No, I was gonna say the generational wealth thing is like that hits home too, because even with my parents, right? Our parents, they sacrificed so much to come to America to give us that opportunity. And one of the greatest things that we can do, I feel like one of the greatest things that we could do, obviously, is like you get a good job, you set your life up, but it's like, what if we really took this opportunity to create that generational wealth? And be like, let me go the furthest I can and see if I can make it and create, as you said, generational wealth. Like I want 10 years not 10 years, like 100 years down the line, whereas like my kids like are like, oh shoot, like
Most definitely. And I always had I always had this dream with real estate, because I was born, I grew up in the projects. I grew up in Orchard Park, and so out of all my my family and friends, we were pretty much my little family was the only one that really lived in the projects. So everyone else, some of them owned their houses, some of them just lived in other houses, they rented out of houses or whatever. But for me, I was just man, it was just always a thing. I couldn't stand it. I was it just sucks to live here, and also the violence and the poverty and everything just in the area. But I always had this dream of just having houses, and I was you know what, I had a dream that I would just own a whole bunch of houses, and I wouldn't tell nobody about it. And then when my daughter turns 18, 20 something, I could just look and say, you know what, that one's yours, and that one's yours, and that one's yours.
Everybody gets a house.
Everybody gets a house. So that's still the same dream I'm working on. So own all the houses, just on the hush.
Nah, the best way to do it too. Just be wealthy, and nobody knows. You're just that's what's up, man. I love that. I hope you're gonna make it. You're gonna make it work. You want
Yes,
to?
most definitely. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
Well, Oye, this has been like, very, very informative, very, just learning about everything that you're doing. I'm really excited to see where you go with .yu. Really
Thank you.
excited to see what you said you have something that's coming out, a new line that's coming out. When is that dropping?
It's the official date is still being worked on, but I'm hoping end of this month, early. I'm gonna say end of this month. I'm not gonna continue to push it back. But end of this month. And when it does, definitely gonna reach out to you. I got to get you in some of these pieces as well,
Yes,
for sure.
definitely. And I'm gonna make sure that I link everything. So probably by the time by the time this episode comes out, it'll probably be out. So I'm gonna make sure I link
Ooh,
everything. So make sure you get your .u, get your gear, support Oye,
yes,
and
sir.
his whole movement. Get the clothing with the message behind it.
Thank you for so much for having me on. This was an amazing
Yes.
conversation. And you're my neighbor.
Yes.
At OD. Like you're from Madison. That's
Can't believe
crazy.
it. That's so
What?
funny. And we was there at the same time. Like that's really crazy.
I know. Yo, we probably ran into each other through like,
Probably.
cause yo, Madison people always came to OB.
Yeah.
The OB people always went to
Yep.
Madison. It was like
Definitely.
it was one of those things.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
funny. That's so funny. But yeah, no, this has been really dope. Is there anything that you want to leave people with before we wrap?
Oh shoot, that's a great question. Yeah, I would say, the best thing, I know it's difficult, but the best thing to do is just believe in yourself. And you're on your journey of just being an entrepreneur. I know we both could vouch on this. There's going to be days when you wake up and you're going to be questioning if this is what you're supposed to be doing, but that's normal. And just continue to move forward through that because those questions are going to turn to answers, and you're going to start facing the reality that you're dreaming of. So just continue to move forward in that.
Yeah, most definitely. I love that. Believe in yourself, guys. Never, always have that confidence in whatever you're doing. Um, and just keep going, keep pushing, and get to where you're trying to get. All right. Well, I think that is it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace.
Thank you.